All right, good morning. I'd like to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the RTC Board of County Commissioners and turn it over to MJ.
Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. Your first item is to conduct your first citizens participation period.
Thank you, MJ. This is the first time set aside for public comment. This time is limited to comments on items included on the agenda. Those wishing to speak on a posted agenda item, now is your opportunity. Please come forward to the microphone and state your name for the record. Any comments from the public? Okay. Additionally, with the rise in COVID-19 cases in Clark County, the RTC is temporarily accepting public comment via email to be read aloud by staff onto the record. Are there any public comments to be read by staff on the first public comment?
This is Maren Dubois for the record. There are no public comments for this period.
Thank you, Maren. If there are no other public comments, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to the next agenda item.
Thanks, Vice Chair. The next item is to approve the agenda. It's in order and ready for your approval.
All right, any comments from the board? Hearing none, do we have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. MJ.
Thank you. The next item is to receive the CEO report. And the first item in today's report, let me move on here, is to recognize our Superstars of the Quarter, RTC Superstars of the Quarter. So for the administrative technical category, we were happy to recognize Tammy Holloway from our facilities team. Tammy was instrumental in building our enterprise asset management program and supporting one of the first departments to integrate the system. And this was a really big deal for the agency, about 2 years in the making, so it was a Herculean effort by the entire team, especially Tammy. She takes great pride in her work, and it shows in her work product every single day. And so let's watch Francis and Warren surprise her.
Thank you, MJ. I'm so happy that the Superstars of the Quarters are finally back at the board meeting. Today, we're celebrating Tammy, and I'll let Warren explain why she deserves that amazing award.
Congratulations, Tammy, for being the Superstar of the Quarter. And thank you for being so diligent in your EAM workload and taking on the new task of our asset management system. And you've been a tremendous asset as we've moved forward to implementing this. And we know this is MJ's baby. Keep it up. Congratulations.
And now follow me. Let's go and surprise Tammy.
Tammy? Oh, sorry to scare you. We just want to take the opportunity to congratulate you as the Superstar of the Quarter. Yeah! Yeah!
Hi, my name is Tammy Holloway. I'm in the facilities department. Just thank you so much for the honor of giving me an award and all the work we've done in EAM. And it's not a one-person effort, it's a team effort. We did it together, and I thank you for this facilities department for all that you guys do for me. Thanks.
Aw, is Tammy here today? Yay, Tammy! Best team ever. Okay, moving on. For the professional supervisory category, we awarded Maren Dubois. As a senior management analyst on the agenda team, Maren worked tirelessly above and beyond her previous management analyst role. During the pandemic, she trained agenda members and transitioned all meetings to virtual, hybrid, and got us back to in-person, which is no easy task, and it really wasn't. So let's watch the team surprises Maren.
Hi everyone, I am Angela Castro, and with me is
David Clyde.
And we are very excited today because we get to go downstairs and award one of our very own with the Superstar of the Quarter Award. Her name is Maren Dubois.
And Maren is a part of the agenda team as a senior management analyst. And sometimes when you deal with the agenda team, a lot of the work that they do is behind the scenes, but what they do is absolutely critical. Without them, public meetings wouldn't happen, we'd be violating the law and all sorts of other problems.
And Maren, during this time frame, has done an amazing job in being fluid and flexible and preparing us as we went through the shutdown. She went above and beyond to move all of our meetings virtually to ensure that we're compliant with open meeting law. She's worked a lot of nights and was extremely tired as we went through the process to make sure everything was compliant and that we had very open and transparent meetings. So come on with us as we go and surprise her. David and I wanted to come down and congratulate you on being Superstar of the Quarter, but we brought a whole posse with us, so everybody is here. I found everybody in the building. Woo! Oh, there's Monica. We just wanted to say, on behalf of the RTC and our team, thank you so much for all the work that you do. Especially during the pandemic, we know that you went above and beyond. And every person that is with us today, nights and weekends, and you just made sure all of our meetings were compliant with open meeting law, regardless of what we did. We missed agenda deadlines, you ran us down, and we know that you just always, always are very helpful and you go above and beyond. So we just wanted to say congratulations. Yay!
Hi, RTC. I am Marin. I'm with the Government Affairs team. I work on the agendas and committees. I just want to say thank you for this nomination and being selected as Superstar of the Quarter. The agenda team puts in a lot of time and effort. The last couple years with the pandemic has been crazy, getting agendas together and our public meetings going virtual. So I've tried to put in all my effort and give 110% where I can. So I really appreciate this recognition. Thank you.
Yay, Marin. Marin, you gotta stand up. Marin, come on, stand up. Yes.
We'll forgive you for being a Broncos fan just this one time.
And yes, that was a punching bag that you saw in Angela's office. That's all I'll say, team, huh? Okay, so moving on. Whoops. There we go. So September was Fruit and Veggie Month in Nevada, and to help celebrate, the RTC Southern Nevada Health District, 3 Square and Vegas Roots Veggie Buck Truck hosted several pop-up produce markets at the Bonneville Transit Center. In an effort to increase access to low-cost, fresh fruits and vegetables in downtown Las Vegas, customers were able to purchase fresh produce for about $1 a pound. Additionally, nutrition information and enrollment in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, was available during the events. In total, throughout the 3 pop-up events, we had more than 150 transactions and nearly 700 pounds of produce were provided. We were joined by several elected officials and their staff from each of the member entities, and thank you to all who supported this great initiative. And we're going to really look forward to doing this on a consistent basis, because I think everybody really enjoyed it. And again, not everyone has access to fresh fruit and vegetables, and this was a great opportunity to bring it to them. So I'm going to turn this slide over. David Swall, if you don't know, he's our professional bike cyclist at the RTC, cycling, all things cycling. And he and his team implement and oversee the bike share program in downtown Las Vegas. So I'm going to turn over to Dave.
Yeah, so this month we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary. Mayor Goodman, I don't know if you remember when we had, I don't know how many dozen Elvises on the bike share bikes to celebrate the grand opening. And, you know, it's amazing how quickly 5 years has gone by. With that, we've seen the program grow consistently every year. Last year was amazing, but still the trends continue upward. To date, the riders who have used bike share have completed more than 167,000 trips, burning more than 38.5 million calories. And since inception, customers have ridden about 761,000 miles, ultimately removing about 1.3 tons of carbon dioxide emissions from our valley's atmosphere. To help celebrate the occasion, the entire month of October is RTC Bike Share Month. And so we're offering different programs. For instance, we're taking our regular monthly pass fare of $15, where you get unlimited trips for the month. We're knocking it down to $5 for all of October. So if you get a chance, please, if you haven't tried bike share before, please go out and try it. It's only $5. You get to ride as much as you want all month. With that, we also have some events providing information on self-guided tours every week, you know, to go explore downtown Las Vegas, the various, you know, the coffee shops, the bars, the restaurants, seeing the numerous murals that have been put in place out there. So cycling is one of the best ways to connect with our community. If you get a chance, get out there and pedal away. Beyond that, we have some upcoming events not just in October, but even in November, where RTC is partnering with the Southern Nevada Bicycle Coalition to really promote the safety campaign they have, Let's Get There Together, with a number of suggestions on how people can ride safely, but also to really try to get the number of crashes between bicyclists and cars down wherever possible. We're kicking it off with a press event on November 4th, where the coalition is doing a reveal, so stay tuned for that. In addition, on November 5th, we're helping to organize a ride with them on First Friday, again, to celebrate bicycling, especially now with the cooler weather. It's a little bit easier to get out and about. So look forward to that. Finally, November 19th, we're working with our chair, Mayor Deborah March, as well as Vice Chair Jones, and even Mayor Pro Tem Bridges. I think you're going to be out there as well. We're going to have a bike safety and maintenance training event. This is meant to be really for all the novice riders. Maybe people have ridden bikes, when they were younger, but especially with e-bikes, a lot more people are getting back out there, and we think that's great, but we want to make sure people know how to ride safely. So we're scheduling this event for Friday, November 19th. We're looking at Heritage Park in Henderson to host the event, so we can get folks to learn in a safe environment and then take a little ride out on the roads around there to see how it goes. So.
Thank you, David. And I just wanted to say, as I understand it, it was actually Dave's idea for the name of the most recent campaign. So great idea.
Great job. Thanks, David. For the next item in the CEO report, John Penuelas, RTC Senior Director of Engineering, will provide you with an update on the progress of our roadway funding, including fuel tax and sales tax.
Thank you, MJ. Good morning, Commissioners. Again, John Penuelas for the record. I'm here to give you a brief update on the Roadway Funding and Delivery Program, and also be highlighting some of the projects that have been completed in your jurisdiction since July 1st. So this chart is showing the project since 2014, when the Fuel Revenue Indexing Program started. As you can see, 561 roadway projects have been started, with 326 of those being completed. These are projects made possible by local funding sources, which of course include fuel revenue indexing, motor vehicle fuel tax, and sales tax. Again, since 2014, we have awarded over $1.8 billion in roadway contracts to your jurisdictions. You can see here that the lion's share of the funding comes from fuel tax, which of course includes the FRI funding. Now this graph shows how the dollars under contract compare to our total revenues and expenses. Again, this is a cumulative chart since 2014. As of the first quarter of fiscal year 22, the total revenue is more than $2.1 billion. The total expenses is more than $1.2 billion, and the total contract amounts to the locals is just over $1.8 billion, excuse me. So that jog right there that you see in the yellow line between 21 and 22 is caused by the fact that obviously we're just reporting the first quarter of FY22. But based on the current rate of expenditures, that line will bend up when the fiscal year is up next June. So the money is hitting the street. It's hitting the street at a record pace, and so are the projects. Now this chart shows the ever-important job creation aspects of the program. Again, this is cumulative, and since 2014, with the help of our contractors and the jurisdictions, we together have created over 12,000 jobs. So now I'd like to share several construction projects that have been completed since July 1st that highlight the partnerships between the local agencies, the contractors, and the RTC that have been working tirelessly to improve mobility, enhance safety, and we will continue to fund roadway maintenance and improvement projects going forward. So we'll start here in Clark County. In May of 21, Clark County began the installation of traffic signals at Durango Drive and Gomer Road and at Spencer Street in Wigwam. This project wrapped up in August of 21 with a total cost of about $3 million. Staying in Clark County, they started construction on street improvements on both Alexander and Pebble. Alexander improvements went from Pecos to Puebla, and Pebble went from Eastern to Pecos. These projects were completed in September at a cost of approximately $7.9 million. Moving to the city of Henderson, they've been working on some major roadway projects, including those on Paseo Verde Parkway. This project began in June of 21 and goes from Stephanie Street to Horizon Ridge Parkway. This project wrapped up in September for a cost of approximately $1.9 million. Staying in Henderson, they completed their Roma Hills Complete Streets Improvement Project, which began in November of 20. This project stretches from Horizon Ridge up the hill to Escaya with a cost of $2.8 million, which included the traffic signal that you see there at Roma Hills. Now to the city of Las Vegas. Their traffic signal and ITS project helped improve pedestrian safety and other things. This project began in December of 2020 and concluded at the end of September for a total cost of approximately $3.7 million. And this is one example from that much larger project showing a rapid flashing beacon, overhead rapid flashing beacon on Oso Blanco. And let's see here, we are still in the city of Las Vegas, of course. This is Ogden Avenue in downtown Las Vegas, where they made improvements to walkways, medians, sidewalks, and of course the roadway. This project began last July and wrapped up at the end of September for a total cost of about $5 million. Now we're going up to Mesquite. Okay, so this is the new bus shelter installations. The shelter project began in April of 21. And features solar-powered lights and shaded seating to protect people from the sun up there. The project wrapped up in July with a total of 18 new shelters being installed for a total cost of $285,000. Now, I should say that this money comes from the Complete Streets Fund, so when you check the box on when you register your car, that $2 goes to this fund, which is rotated around to the various agencies. So this is some tangible results from that money, which is a good thing. And then also in Mesquite, Kitty Hawk Drive received nearly $1 million, or I'm sorry, 1 mile of, actually more than almost $2 million of asphalt. And updates as shown here. The project began in January of this year and wrapped up in June for a total cost of $1.9 million. And then finally, moving to North Las Vegas, they have made significant improvements to Decatur Boulevard. This project included ADA upgrades to the sidewalks, new asphalt, paving, and additional street signage. There were 2 sections on Decatur, one from Cheyenne Avenue to Rancho Road and the other from Lone Mountain to Ann. The project concluded in July for an approximate total of $1.5 million. And that concludes my update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, JP. Any questions from the board?
If I
Mayor?
might, through you, Mr. Chair, a couple of questions. What are we doing, and it may go to you, MJ Maynard, but about battery-operated vehicles that don't use the fuel and we get no income? Where are we with that?
So, that's a great question, Mayor. As you know, we have a transition plan to zero-emission vehicles that, if funding is available, that will be complete in 2035. But with that being said, we have 2 hydrogen fuel cell buses that will be in operation as a pilot in 2022, and we've ordered up to 10 battery electric buses that will be in operation in 2023. We are currently working closely with NV Energy. As it stands right now at our bus yards, we have the capacity with our current grid system to charge about 10 vehicles. So in order to expand that and continue to procure battery electric buses, we'll again continue to work with NV Energy to understand more fully what we need to do to upgrade the grid. But Francis, anything you want to add?
I think the mayor is actually referring to policy question of electric vehicles paying into the roadway improvements.
May I jump in?
Oh, I see.
May
Okay.
I jump in?
Yeah, please. You know, I was going to say, you probably want to talk to Director Swallow because she's working on a...
I actually have an update in my report.
Okay, then I'll hold that part. Thank you, because I really was looking at the income. We've been discussing this for a couple of years.
Yep.
And so as we have the fuel index tax that they're not paying. The other, if I may continue, fuel index tax 1 and 2 what are we doing about number 3? Are we preparing to go back to the legislature at this time for the next episode of fuel index?
That certainly is, that's an option. The indexing piece that expires in 2026, the Constitution, the law says that we have to go back out to the ballot, to the community, by way of a ballot question in 26. However, it would go to Clark County Commission first for their approval, and then to the ballot in 2026. But there is conversation occurring right now about potentially could something. Well, there's conversation about the 23rd legislative session, and potentially, is there a way to do something sooner? But there's a lot of conversation going on.
Thank you. Thanks for your report, too. Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
MJ.
Okay, great. Oops. So I'm going to turn this over to Francis Julian. You know, last month we had a lot of paratransit customers, drivers show up, and they had some concerns. And we were asked to come back with a report to address what those concerns are and how we're able to potentially rectify or mitigate some of the concerns, again, that the drivers brought up and passengers brought up. So I'm going to turn this over to Francis Julian, our Deputy CEO.
Thank you, MJ. Francis Julian for the record. Since the last board meeting, my staff and I have conducted over 7 focus groups. I've had breakfast meetings with employees and the union representing the paratransit drivers, and was invited to one of their union meetings. And I've met, and my team and I have met with over 120 drivers, where we've engaged in a lot of conversation. And I'm here to report back on some of those findings. One thing that's important to note after all those meetings, I'm happy to report that now the union and MV have a much better line of communication, and a lot of things were ironed out. So what we've heard at the last board meeting, we can basically put them in 3 categories. The first one is due to driver shortage. The second one are technology issues, and then employee issues. So under the driver shortage, the current rosters of operators that have been forced to work extra shift, and especially those with less seniority that kept on working week over week extra shift. And we heard that obviously from the driver shortage, obviously service was greatly affected, either by on-time performance, so the appointments, customers getting to their appointment late or getting picked up late, or staying on the bus too long. From the technology issues, drivers at the last board meeting also told us that their trip scheduling software was not mapping correctly, causing them to have late drop-off and being late because the GPS was not sending them necessarily at the right place. And we heard about a lot of clients getting to their appointment well before the business opened their doors. Drivers obviously had to wait for the business to open, and obviously by waiting half an hour, then all the rest of their day, clients would actually be late. One of the clients had an issue with the MTM. MTM is a Medicaid, so it's a state contractor. So they had an issue with their call centers, and I'll be addressing what we've done with that. And finally, for the employee issues, drivers were really frustrated with the lack of engagement from MV and access to managers. And not surprisingly, the employee morale was very, very low because of all these issues. So now let's go into what the potential solution and what we are doing and what we will be doing. So obviously the recruitment campaign was ongoing well before the last board meeting, but I'm really happy to see right now the latest numbers we had from MV. There's 50 drivers that are in the training cycle. As a reminder, training a driver takes a little bit over a month on paratransit, but those 50 drivers will actually be able to fill the current gap and give much needed relief. MV is now giving incentives to drivers that are coming on their extra days of work, obviously to help in any way, shape, or form to have more drivers coming in and giving a bit of relief to the drivers. What we've done on the agency side, as you probably recall, on August 8th, when we started the new service change, we have our brand new on-demand service. Because we're ramping up service, we actually use the drivers and the vehicles from that contract to help out mitigate some of the trips. So customers going to dialysis or chemotherapies were actually transported with the on-demand service. It was seamless to the customer, but obviously, because it's a different contractor, really helped with the numbers of trips our paratransit drivers had to do. The second thing that really moved the needle as well is for all the non-essential trips, so going to movie theaters, grocery shopping. A lot of our customers, by habit, just like to go early morning, like at 7 o'clock in the morning, but 7 o'clock in the morning is where all our customers going to work, going to a doctor's appointment. It's really our busiest time. So to try to move all those trips away to help mitigate the on-time performance, we gave courtesy ride to those customers that wanted to move their trip later during the day, so in between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. And that really moved a lot of trips. Instead of having a big peak at 7 o'clock, now it's a more stable curve. So let's look at the report. So these are the number of drivers that worked overtime since August. The dotted line is actually the average or the trend line. So as we can see, there's a slow decline on the number of drivers being required to work. We don't have data on this graph from this week, but this week we saw even a steeper fall in number of operators being requested to come to work. So that is positive news. And once again, for the on-time performance, so the way we quantify service, so since the 1st of September, where the on-time performance was at 85%, we're now up to 89%. So obviously those issues cannot be resolved in a day, but we're seeing positive trends in the numbers. So some of the potential solutions we'll be looking at, and some that we already implemented. When the drivers talk to us about the mapping issues, we're actually upgrading the mapping system, and within a month, we will actually be switching from a proprietary mapping system to a generic TomTom mapping, which will greatly help. To date, we have almost half of the fleet that is updated with new mapping software, which will greatly help. One of the things that the drivers mentioned as well was that the buses were full under COVID, obviously still under COVID conditions. So when we looked at the stats, 42% of all our trips for the last 2 months have been solo trips. So there's only been one passenger inside the vehicle. So it's almost like a taxi service. And 87% of all the trips had 4 passengers or less. It still leaves 13%, and we do recognize that there was some trip where we had 10 or 11 passengers. So what we did in the software, we were able to work with the software provider to limit the number to 6 passengers as we're waiting for the pandemic to end. As a reminder, there's 12 seats and there's 12 passengers, so it's going to be half the capacity of the vehicle. For the customers that were getting dropped off early, first of all, it's important to note that those appointments were taken by the caretaker. So some caretakers were booking trips that would get to certain location half an hour or 45 minutes before the openings of the door. So our IT department really rolled out really quickly. Within 2 weeks, we were able to get a pop-up for a call center. So if a customer would call, ask to go to Opportunity Village and have their loved ones being dropped half an hour before, our call center agent would actually get a pop-up saying, please push your trip because you're actually requiring an appointment that would drop off your loved one half an hour before the time. So we're seeing a lot of improvement in those early drop-offs already because of this implementation. For the MTM customer issue about the customer service, our customer service manager, Kenny Rodriguez, is actually in contact with, has been in multiple contacts with MTM to share the best practice of what we're doing internally with our customer service to make sure that the waiting times are not too long. But once again, this is an outside agency, but we're trying to help as much we can. For the employee morale and the employees' issues, so MV has a new general manager. We're really happy. Don Johnson, which used to be at MV over fixed route, is now over paratransit. He's got a great track record and is doing already a lot of changes in that contract. And MV hired 2 HR specialists to help, one dedicated to employee engagement. So we're really happy. We're really happy to see this. And Don is tasking his manager to be present and be available to drivers to address their issues. From the RTC side, we used to have a comment box. We actually finally got to 2021, so now we have a direct email access. So if a driver has an issue, an RTC-related issue, they can send an email, and this email is actually managed by our Director of Paratransit. So for all these measures, we're thinking it's really helping. I've received a lot of positive comments. I have a driver that called me last night. They're really, obviously they're still tired of working all these overtime shifts, and we appreciate what they're doing. But they're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. They're happy to be part of the conversation and part of the solution mostly. So we'll keep that close ties with those drivers until the issues are completely resolved. And that concludes my presentation, if you have questions.
Thank you, Francis. Any comment, Mayor?
Yes, if I could ask through you, Mr. Chairman, knowing that drivers are sought after by the Clark County School District, and I know we've done a pilot program about using our system, how are you able to compete with their plea? They've got 315,000 students, most of whom use busing. How does the RTC, and not to say anything or answer anything that's untoward, but what are you doing as an incentive so that you're really...
So there's actually a lot of incentives. We've been working with and helping the contractors in their recruitment efforts. So contractors are actually giving up to $2,000 in signing bonus. There is weekly bonuses, attendance bonuses that are implemented. The starting wages in those contracts is actually a bit higher than what CCSD offers, so that really helps our contractors. In some, depending on the contracts, the starting wage are starting from $16 and will soon be all the way to $17 as an entry, but then grow quite rapidly.
May I ask one more question, please? So as you're looking to the fact that obviously the Clark County School District offers PERS, and the contractors with whom you're dealing, or the RTC is dealing, those are independent private firms, correct?
Yes, it is. It's 401ks.
So you're dealing public, private, and that, how are you able to compete with that insurance, PERS insurance? And is there great variability between the contractors that are seeking these drivers?
Yes. So for school, and I can't speak too much to school drivers, but what I know, because of their split shift, they're not doing full hours. So obviously it shows in the PERS. So versus a fixed route or paratransit drivers that, I mean, they, especially right now, they can work from 40 to 60 hours a week if they want, and build this. Another thing we've done with all the vehicles, we're basically at the RTC, we're everywhere, 24/7 in town. When you get on our bus, there's advertisement everywhere for the 2 contractors. When they log in on our free Wi-Fi, they actually get a pop-up to apply for a job. Angela's team did a wonderful job promoting this. And there's the contractors are really thinking outside the box. They have radio ads, they have billboard. One of the contractors actually is working with the Christian charities to help the new Afghan refugees and providing them with a job. So they're working to basically onboard them with a career as a bus driver. So a lot of creativity, and what we're seeing on all contracts right now, as much as it was hard this summer for them to hire, the training pipeline is actually really moving.
Great, thank you. And if I might just ask, MJ, will you be reporting about the Clark County School District and the marriage in your report, or it's
Absolutely, yeah. We just rolled that program out this past Monday, so next board meeting, we'll end up, as part of the CEO report, reporting to you on a monthly basis.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your report. I just wanted to note, as I did before, I used the OnDemand Service last week, and the drivers were very enthusiastic about what they do on a daily basis, very happy with their jobs. And the tire store, I had to go back and forth from the tire store because I blew a tire last Friday. And when I came back on my on-demand paratransit bus, the tire store operator said, "How can I get information about that? We have a lot of customers who are very interested in the service." And then one of my colleagues on the county commission would very much like to have the service expanded, so I told them, stay tuned.
Good. We'll definitely reach out.
Okay, and this concludes your report.
All right.
Okay, and we'll move on to the next item, which is to receive the Nevada Department of Transportation Director's Report from Director Christina Swallow.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. It's good to be here. Before I get started, I just wanted to say in the last month or so, we've had a lot of contact from members of the commission, their colleagues, and your team members. And so thank you for reaching out. We're always happy to answer your questions as much as we can. Sometimes the answer might take us a little bit, and sometimes you might not like our answer, but we're always happy to have those conversations. So feel free always to reach out to myself, one of our team members, Jeff LaRue. He's our team member, our deputy that is primarily located here in Southern Nevada. We're always happy to help and answer your questions, so thank you. As I always do, I'm going to start with safety. And yeah, like this has not been a good report for the last year and a half. Like this is year and 10 months. It's terrible. And I think we need to start just right there and note that we are today on track to have the deadliest year on our roads in a decade. So far this year, through the end of September, we have had more fatalities on our roads than the total year-end fatality rates for 2010, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So we still have 3 months to go, and we've already beat all 5 of those years, what their year-end was. And the 3 months that we have to go are typically really bad months. So it's not good. Here in Clark County, there were over 170 traffic fatalities so far this year as of the end of September. That's a 25% increase over last year. It includes increases in motorcyclist, bicyclist, scooter, and moped crashes. We were delighted to see and are delighted to see the Clark County focus on traffic safety. And I want to remind everyone that we at the state level have a safety committee, so the Nevada Advisory Committee on Traffic Safety. It does have representation from League of Cities and from NACO on it, but any member is welcome to join us. There are public meetings. We have lots of task groups where we work on specific public safety issues around traffic safety. So I encourage you, if you're interested, or your team members or your colleagues, to join us on that committee as well, so we can work together. And we're hopeful that the new focus on the county will be able to all just work even closer together with ourselves, Department of Public Safety, and the Office of Traffic Safety, the Nevada Office of Traffic Safety. One other thing on this I did want to touch base on is next week is the Safety Summit, the annual Nevada Safety Summit. It's not too late to register. If anybody is interested in registering, you can go to zerofataliesnv.com. And they have it's 3 days of programming, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, or 2.5 days. It's a half day Thursday. And they're going to be talking about things like impaired driving and speeding, which are the primary causes that we're really looking at and have been for a while now. They're also going to look at child passenger safety and how do we respond in communications. And so it is a really good conference to go to. I believe it is free. So if you or your colleagues or any of your team members at your agencies are interested in going, I encourage you to sign up. Again, zerofataliesnv.com. So let's talk about the crash that I normally highlight. One example of impairment is impairment was suspected in a crash that left one man dead and his female passenger critically injured on September 27th here in Las Vegas. The two were traveling south on Lamb Boulevard when they were struck by a Toyota Corolla headed west on Charleston. The westbound driver ran the red light and collided with the victim's car in the intersection. Metro Police suspected the westbound driver impairment and booked him on applicable charges. The driver of the southbound car was taken to Sunrise Hospital where he died. His passenger was taken to UMC with critical injuries. As we talk about impairment, our partners at Zero Fatalities have rolled out their final campaign of 2021, a rideshare campaign focused on impaired driving. The campaign focuses and juxtaposes the typical rideshare experience that most of us have had. You get into the Uber and Lyft, maybe you had a really great time on the golf course, or you were out partying on the strip, and then you call the Uber and Lyft, you get into the car, you get home safely. It juxtaposes that with a totally different type of rideshare, where the impaired drivers are in the backseat of a police car after being arrested for a DUI. Through a robust bilingual outreach plan, creative engagement on social media, statewide news, and other tools, the campaign hopes to encourage drivers to always drive sober, plan ahead, and use a designated driver or rideshare when drinking. We're proud to work with them, Zero Fatalities, and the Department of Public Safety on the shared goal of saving lives. Looking forward to working more closely with the county and your focused effort, and really all of this is so that we can achieve zero fatalities by 2050. And I gotta tell you, 2050 seems like a really long time and a lot of people losing their lives on our roads. So if there's any way that we can work more closely together to do it faster, I think that really should be our goal. All right, Mayor Goodman, to your question about sustainable funding. Yes.
Could I, through you, Mr. Chairman, before you go on?
Yeah.
We have been notified that all citations of jaywalking have been removed. Those numbers that you quoted are at a minimum, I assure you, because I am out on the roads at night in the dark and people will not use the crosswalks where there's extra lighting. I don't know where you go with this, but if you do not enforce the laws you don't have laws. Now that we have lifted the jaywalking citation, we have no hammer on that, and you are going to see more pedestrians falling. Those numbers are going to skyrocket. And I know law enforcement has just said we're not to ticket. So what do you do with somebody on way west Sahara in the dark because the lighting is not strong? You don't see them. Most of us going into the winter time are in dark clothing. I don't know where you go with it, but I highly recommend you speak with the governor and get something changed on some type of encouragement to law enforcement and to all of us who are on the roads all the time and don't see these people.
You know, I'm so glad you brought that up because a large part of safety on our network is, you know, individual responsibility. You've heard me talking about that for a year and a half, 2.5 years. Is that
and
individual?
Could I ask you to take your, not that I can't hear, but I can, but it's all blurred.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
A large part of traffic safety is individual responsibility. You've heard me talk about that a lot in the 2.5 years I've been in this role. Another significant part of it is enforcement, and you just brought that up. But I think one of the key things in my role at NDOT is, you know, the engineering piece. And I've been very excited to see local agencies focusing on this. The RTC has focused on this. I actually, you know, I ride the bus, and my bus stop moved lately. It just moved, I think like 3 months ago. 2 months ago it moved, and that was, I had pros and cons about that. The carpool ride the next day, I'm like, the bus stop moved, and now I don't have a giant tree. But nobody needs to jaywalk to get to that bus stop. A significant number of the riders that access that bus stop lived directly across the street and there wasn't a crosswalk. So for them, it was 1/4 mile or more out of direction travel to get to that bus stop. So some of this is engineering. It's making sure that the bus stops are located close to a crosswalk so that people don't have to go out of direction. It's making sure that we know where the kids are crossing when they're going to school. And yes, it doesn't seem like a really far distance to just go down that path a little bit further, but it's really hot out. Or Monday it was crazy windy, and like not only that, you probably got a good facial if you were outside, because I understand the sand was intense on Monday with that wind. We hardly ever ask our drivers to go out of direction to get to their destination, but we frequently ask and expect that of our pedestrians. And so to me, it's not just about the enforcement piece, it's also about how can I make sure my corridors are designed to be safe for the pedestrians and provide them the access they want, and how can I work with our local public agencies as well to help ensure, to minimize the desire to cross outside of a designated crosswalk. So I'm glad you brought it up because it's a joint effort. There's some personal responsibility, there's enforcement, but there's also that engineering side, and that's one of the things I'm looking forward to working with the county on.
I have one real quick question. I don't know if this is really to you or to our FAST team, but maybe it's just me, but it sure seems like over the last few weeks, the number of people that are blatantly running red lights is just off the chart. So is there a way, I know we don't have red light cameras for ticketing to the mayor's point, but is there a way that we somehow track the number of people that are blatantly running red lights through intersections?
Thank you, Commissioner. John Pinuelos. The short answer is no, unfortunately, but we do have metrics that talk about the performance of the signal, and we can see how many people are arriving on green or arriving on red. So one of the emphasis of the FAST team is to make sure that we get a timing of those signals correct between the intersections, so more people are arriving on green and don't have the opportunity to ride red lights. But it is a very serious problem.
Do we have the ability to track? I know we're statutorily prohibited from issuing tickets based on red light cameras, but are we statutorily prohibited from maintaining data on red light runners?
No, if we can get it. In fact, we're looking at technologies that can detect and record that phenomenon, but it is not in place yet.
Okay, thanks.
All right, moving on. It's hard after that, right? Traffic safety is such a big issue, and I remember when Zero Fatalities first did their, a lot of their outreach, and they were like, how many is too many? And people were like, oh, 30, whatever. And then they're like, how many in your family is too many? And really, one is too many. And so I appreciate that we have these open conversations and discussions about how we can improve it, and look forward to hearing more from all of the agencies on how we can work together to improve safety, including simple things like moving my bus stop. So, all right. Sustainable funding. Mayor Goodman, you asked about what we are doing about those EVs. So in 2019, there was the first legislative session that I was here. In 2013, there was a bill, SCR3, and it created a committee to look at at the funding problem, the challenge, specifically regarding EVs. As we work to achieve our climate goals, we know that there are going to be more EVs. Even if we weren't working to achieve our climate goals, there's going to be more EVs because people are excited to buy these electric vehicles, especially as they improve. So how do we address that? So there was some work done during that interim. It came out, it went back to the legislative session in 2021 this year, and another bill came out. It directed NDOT to convene a committee, a working group, to look at the long-term sustainable funding, primarily of the state highway fund, but we're having much broader conversations than that. And so we've been meeting, I think we had our third meeting in September. It was our third meeting in September. I'll skip what I was going to tell you, and I'll just tell you at the end of this. So we're required to provide recommendations to the legislature for the 2023 session. So we have about a year to do this work, a little bit less than that if we want to hit for bill BDR deadlines. So that's our timeline. We have about a year to work on this. We had our third meeting in September. In September, we talked a lot about how other states fund their transportation system. In Nevada, we are really heavily reliant on the fuel tax, and then some registration fees and driver license fees. But our suite of revenue is smaller than in a lot of other states. So we talked broadly about how other states fund their transportation system, so we could understand and learn that. We also talked about the state of transportation electrification and what that's going to look like as we further electrify the transportation system. And then we spent the whole afternoon talking about guiding revenue principles. How are we going to measure our recommendations? There are challenges with the fuel tax today. There are challenges with some of our registration fees. So how are we going to measure whether or not what we recommend is sustainable, whether or not it meets the goals of the committee was charged with also looking at social and user equity. How are we going to measure that? And how are we going to compare all of these different potential sources? So we spent the afternoon talking broadly about what these guiding principles will be. We've sent draft principles to the members of the working group for their thoughts and feedback. And in November, we're hoping to finalize those revenue principles. We're going to share with the working group how the current funding in Nevada measures up against those principles. We're going to learn about two other economic models that are in use in, one is in use in Utah. It's a road user charge. Right now in Utah, it is an opt-in for EVs. So the EVs can either pay a larger registration fee, or they can opt in and pay a per mile fee. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about a model that the Natural Resources Defense Council, the NRDC, has suggested that we consider. I don't know where we're going to end, but I know as we start talking about the needs, NDOT, just on our own, has an annual shortage over $500 million a year. That's half of our overall program, and it's about 70% of our capital program. I know the RTC has a transit issue. If we're going to be truly sustainable in our highway fund, we've got to figure out urban transit. So we're having these, and we've got to figure out, like, how do we grow in our community? So we're having broad-based conversations. I don't know that it will be a package that is recommended, but we started talking about that last month in September. I keep looking at MJ because she's one of our committee members. But we did start talking about the fact that it might be a package that's recommended, something along the lines of, you need to do this today because we can do this today and it will help shore up the fund today. But you also need to work on implementing this other thing, because EVs are a really small portion right now, so they're not a huge threat, but we know they will be. So, and we know that implementing something to address that might take a little bit. So do this today, do something, lay the groundwork for tomorrow. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to be providing monthly updates, maybe not entirely monthly, depending on, because we're skipping, we're not doing a meeting in October, and I think the November 9th meeting will be for the RTC, so I will be able to. So monthly or so updates as we meet. We're meeting roughly monthly. We are skipping a few months to let the team do background work on providing the information to the working group. I hope to have a robust set of recommendations. The bill requires us to look not just at the long-term sustainability of the fund, the highway fund, but also to look at urban transit as well as land use. So it will always be a suite of recommendations, but I'm thinking even the highway fund piece will be a package of sorts. All right. Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. People are calling this EJA. Like MAP 21, Safety Lou, those were way better, EJA. So anyway, EJA, it's not passed yet. We're hoping that it will get passed. We're working with our federal delegation to encourage them to get it passed. When the continuing resolution was passed at the end of September, everybody was really excited, but they forgot to actually pass an extension for a day or two of our authorization language. So a lot of federal highways, a lot of US DOT employees were furloughed on Friday at the end, Friday, October 1st. And then they passed the extension, but the extension was only for 30 days. And as you know, we have a really robust program. It's, we have a 5-year program that we talk about. It's hard to deliver a 5-year program on 30-day extensions. We're hoping that they will get this bill passed by the end of the month, by the time it expires again. And we're hoping that because it includes a significant increase in funding for us. It's about $100 million we anticipate on an annual basis, which is not insignificant. It will be good. We need it. We can certainly put it to work. We are working right now on the plans of how do we deliver that in the first year, because our program is fiscally constrained, so we weren't planning on an extra $500 million over 5 years. So we're working on making sure that we can deliver it, and I have no doubts that we will put that money to work as soon as we get it. Annual work program. I've been talking to you a little bit about the annual work program. As you know, our board approves it on an annual basis. They just approved it at the September board meeting, but our board meeting was after your board meeting, so I wasn't able to provide you an update. So I wanted to provide you an update on that. But before I get into that, a little bit of history. On your screen right now, or if you're looking at the paper in front of you, you can see sort of the historical spending over from 2011 to 2020. This is the spending. It is slightly different than obligations. So obligations are more fluid and they have more fluctuation on a year-to-year basis in terms of the numbers. Spending is pretty even because of the way that works. So you can see over the last 10 years, roughly 56% of that was spent in Clark County. And I heard you when I joined this board that I needed to look at that and see if I could fix that. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. But before I get to that, I wanted to provide a little more background. You've heard me talk about the One Nevada plan and how we look at all the needs, and then as we look at that, we harmonize it at the end. And among the things that we harmonize around readiness, funding eligibility, performance targets, making sure we're hitting our performance targets, and kind of dependencies, what can go first and what's required to be done. The thing that we get asked the most about across the state is the geographic distribution. And I think a lot of people think, I just told you 56% has been spent in Clark for the decade ending in 2020, but it's not an easy, that geographic distribution isn't an easy answer. If you just look here, you can see, 55% of the vehicle miles traveled are in Clark, 62% of the revenue is in Clark, 73% of the population, but only 21% of the roads are in Clark. And so when you start thinking about that, it really provides us with a challenge on how do we ensure the roads across the state, which are vital and required for all of our travel, how do we make sure those roads are maintained when the majority of the population and the funding is coming out of Clark? And so we are constantly balancing that. We do not have a target set, but we do consider that and weigh that as we deliver our program on an annual basis. And so this is where we ended. On the left is our annual work program. That's what the board approved at our meeting in September. And you can see that this year we're planning on obligating 61% of our revenue here in Southern Nevada, 10% in Washoe. Now that's a significant reduction from what they've seen in the last decade. So, but I think they had a bigger year last year because of they had a bigger project up there. So it is a balance. This does not include any of the direct sub-allocations. So some of that funding comes directly to Clark County or to the RTC to help distribute. It doesn't include that, and it doesn't include any locally administered projects. So the numbers are slightly different when you include all that in. But the only direct sub-allocations go to Washoe and Clark. So you can see 61% for this coming year. Over the 4-year program, 2022 through 2025, it's a 60% on average in Clark, a 14% on average in Washoe. There's a lot of zeros on there, and we heard about that at our board meeting in September. There was concern that we weren't spending across the state, that there were some counties that weren't getting any, and those, it's just a matter of significant digits. When you have a program as large as ours, when you start drilling down, you know, you can get quite a bit of a project. And I'm looking at, in Eureka County, you can get a good sized project, but it may not be 1% of the overall fund. So it's a significant digit issue. All of the counties will get some investment this next year. And so this is what we're planning on doing. I515 Improvements. I know we've all driven through it. If I've driven through it and I don't spend all of my time down here, I know we've all driven through it. And I thank you for your patience as we deliver this project. We are currently seismic retrofitting that viaduct between I-15 and Eastern. The work also includes the demolition and reconstruction of the DI and Eastern bridges on 515. Both of those bridges were built in the mid-'80s. I'm looking in the room, I'm like, all of us predate those bridges, and they're beyond their useful life. Thank goodness we're not beyond our useful lives, but they are, so we have to replace them. The DI bridge will be demoed and reconstructed in 3 phases, and the Eastern bridge will be done in 2 phases. During each of those phases, the roads below the freeway have to be closed. For Desert Inn, it's for 6 days, and Eastern, it's for 10 days per phase. And we understand that this is an inconvenience for people who are traveling those corridors, and appreciate the RTC working with us. I understand we're paying for bus passes for people so they can have free bus passes. And I appreciate RTC working with us on that to help make sure that people can get around the construction zones and get to where they're going. And we're also working with the school district to ensure students can still get to school during this construction. The project will also include repairs to ramps near downtown Las Vegas and is scheduled to wrap at the end of 2022, so we still have another year of this. For anybody who's interested or wants to be apprised or know what's going on, you can go to i515project.com, and that provides updates as to where we are, what's coming up, what the closures might be. Sorry, I have just a couple more slides. I-15 Tropicana last month, Mayor March asked some questions about Tropicana, and so we discussed it a little bit, but I wanted to provide a little more context for this project and an update. I think I said last month we were hoping to approve it at our board meeting this past Monday, and we didn't. We actually postponed it for another 30 days so that we can continue to address some stakeholder concerns. But overall, this will be the first major upgrade on that interchange since it was constructed in the 1960s. In September, our best value proposer was announced at our board meeting, and again, we're looking to hopefully approve the design build agreement in November, in which time we'll begin the contract administration phase, and we anticipate construction beginning later this year and reaching completion by the end of 2024. Some of the highlights of the projects include reconstructing the Tropicana interchange with a newly configured on and off-ramp flyover at Tropicana. It will include new resort corridor access in the form of HOV ramps at I-15 and Harmon, both on the south side, so it'll be northbound off, southbound on. So new access to the resort corridor at Harmon. We're repaving between Warm Springs and Hacienda and installing 10 new active traffic management signs between 215 and Hacienda. We're really excited to do these because they all end right there at Tropicana, and so this will allow us to better manage the system through the construction and in advance of the resort corridor. So we're really excited about delivering those. Dean Martin will be reconfigured to go underneath the Tropicana freeway ramps, removing a traffic signal at intersection near the in and out. If you've driven through the corridor, you know how bad that can jam up during peak hours, so we're looking at making sure that there's smoother flow through there and fewer crashes. We're widening the sidewalks on Tropicana over I-15 and adding a new pedestrian walkway from the north side of Tropicana down to Frank Sinatra, providing better access to T-Mobile Arena for those that are starting on the other side of the road. And again, it's subject to board approval at our meeting in November. We anticipate the award will be for approximately $305 million, and we'll continue to keep you updated and provide you all the information as to how that rolls out moving forward. And my last slide is winter maintenance. And I think I told the team, I'm like, maybe we don't need to focus so hard on winter maintenance in Vegas. And then you guys got snow just like we did this past weekend up on Charleston. So it is important. We do need to hire our winter maintenance workers. They help us with all of our preparations for snow plows and all of our other ice equipment. They operate the plows during the winter months. But we're always on the lookout for good team members. I think that's something that we're all saying right now during, as we come back from the pandemic, everybody could use some more team members, and we definitely can. So whether you know somebody who wants to work specifically driving a snowplow or a snowblower, which is pretty cool, or you just think you know somebody who's looking for a job in communications in our finance department, or just doing any maintenance throughout the year, repairing guardrails, sweeping our projects, replacing our lamps, we're always looking for team members, and would appreciate the referrals. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Swallow. Any additional questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll pass it back to MJ.
Thanks, Vice Chair. The next item is to approve your consent agenda, which consists of items 5 through 28 and can be taken in one motion.
All right. Any comments from the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thanks, Vice Chair. The next item, 29, is to receive information on the November 2021 RTC Board of Commissioners meeting and direct staff accordingly. The November RTC Commission meeting is scheduled for November 11th, which is Veterans Day, so we are suggesting that we move the meeting to the following Thursday, which would be November 18th.
Any comments from the board? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved to change the date of the meeting.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilman Brown? All right.
Sorry, the mute button was stuck here. Aye.
Okay. Aye. All those in opposed, please signify by saying aye. No. Hearing none, the motion carries.
And thanks, Vice Chair. The next agenda item, number 30, we do not have any legal items to discuss, so we can move on to your last agenda item, which is to conduct your final citizen participation period.
Thank you. This is the second time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to the board, now is your opportunity. Please come forward to the microphone to provide your comment and state your name for the record. Do we have any public comment? We did get a couple of cards.
Yes, here comes someone.
Hi, my name is Steven Pastroni. I just want to say thanks to all you guys at RTC. You guys have been really great. You guys have been part of my life for a long time, and you guys have been doing a good job. And I'm sure you guys will get all this ironed out and get it all figured out. Thank you, and y'all have a good day.
Thank you. I also had a Richard Ladnier. Okay. All right. Any other individuals who wish to provide public comment? All right. Seeing none, do we have any written comment?
Thank you, Vice Chair Jones. Mayor Dubois, for the record, we do have 2 public comments we received via email. First says, good morning, commissioners. My name is Robin Kincaid, and I have been testifying at the RTC meetings for the past 3 years. My daughter, Kayla, is a frequent paratransit user. I recognize the efforts to expand the service area, and advocates for persons with disabilities see that as the first step in attempting to meet the transportation needs. Once again, the Las Vegas community is growing, and we need RTC to accommodate the growth within the valley. It is still evident that RTC needs a process to look at the growth and meet the needs in the areas in the over age 55 communities and communities that have been established for decades and still do not have service. Each week, my daughter is experiencing delays for 45 minutes to 1 hour past the pickup time. This is unacceptable, and we need to find solutions to these chronic delays. We are specifically hearing that the delays are more frequent for paratransit riders versus fixed route riders. This is another example of discriminatory delivery of services. The last 2 complaints that I have addressed with the RTC complaint concern line have been met with resistance. The person taking the complaint attempts to provide feedback that the complaint is invalid. Some of these complaints stem from very late pickups, and the individual with disabilities is waiting over 1 hour and 15 minutes and then arrives at her destination 2 hours later. The total trip time is over 3 hours, but because this actual ride was only 2 hours, the customer service rep responds that the trip is not excessive. I object to this response and would like to see the customer service staff receive some additional training. If the rider takes 3 hours to get home, that should be considered unacceptable. I appreciate your visiting this issue. Thank you for your assistance and working towards solutions to make paratransit a system that works for persons with disabilities. And your second comment. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Stephanie Versnick. I am testifying before you for the 44th time. I testified for over 3.5 years asking to expand the service area. For the last 2 months, my home has been in the service area. My son is now brought home right to our front door. We have had a few mishaps, bus being late, driver not having the right credentials to get on the base, bus not waiting the allotted time. But with Francis Julian's help, we have worked them out. Since this pandemic started, our lives have changed dramatically. It's been a tough 1.5 years. This is one positive thing that has happened in my son's life. He is happier and feels more of a sense of independence. My son's life is fuller and more meaningful. As his mom, all we want is to see our kids, and now adults, as independent as possible. Transportation is such a critical piece in everyone's lives, especially when your only option is public transportation. For people with disabilities, public transportation is the piece that connects them to the employment, education, healthcare, and their social world and relationships. We still have a lot of work to do. Many more people still don't have access to transportation. As a member of this community, I would like this board to begin working on a plan to give more people access to transportation. In closing, it is my hope that testimonies continues be read aloud before going into the record. As I previously stated, since the pandemic began, our lives have changed. Our world is a different place. Our daily lives are not the same. We shop and work primarily in the virtual world. The pandemic is still a threat to all of us, and there are people still in quarantine or isolation. Many people, myself included, are not comfortable attending public meetings. In my opinion, I feel that the RTC commissioners needs to change the way things were done in the past. This is a new, different way of life that we are all trying to get used to. In my opinion, I think the virtual world is here to stay. I believe anyone who takes the time to write a public comment deserves to have it read out loud before it goes into the record. It's not asking a lot, it doesn't cost anything, just 500 words or less, a few minutes, and a little bit of common courtesy. In today's world, we can all stand to have more common courtesy towards each other. That concludes these comments.
Thank you. If there's no one else who would like to speak, then we'll go ahead and close the second public comment period. Just want to remind, as a result of our actions today, the next meeting of the RTC board will be Thursday, November 18th. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.